experiences of thousands of other people who are down there in the epicenter of all that, and were there when it occurred. Our hearts go out to them. We don't know what the numbers are yet.
And you hear about Cardinal Egan delivering last rites outside of St. Vincent's Hospital.
And the magnitude of this will go on for some time. This is not just a national tragedy, but this is a national security event of an untold magnitude that this country is going to have to deal with. The president's coming back, and we are at war, in effect, here. This country has suffered a devastating attack that will cost us in loss of life. It will also cost us in terms of our psychological security that we have in this country. We're going to have to revisit a lot of our freedoms as a result of this kind of an attack. And then, of course, there's the whole question of retaliation.
This is
Who is responsible and what do we do?
Tom, this is an upsetting wire that just came across the transom from the West Bank. It says thousands of Palestinians celebrated Tuesday's terror attacks in the United States, chanting God is great and distributing candy to passers-by, even as their leader, Yasser Arafat, said he was horrified. The U.S. government has become increasingly unpopular in the West Bank and Gaza Strip in the past year of Israeli-Palestinian fighting, with many Palestinians accusing Washington of siding with Israel.
For those of you who think that events in far-off places like the Middle East or in Afghanistan or in the subcontinent or in places in Asia have no effect on us, this is the answer today. This place remains an enormous target in the eyes of a lot of people, and we are so vulnerable because of all those things that make us so great, our freedoms and our sense of security that we have. But America has been changed today by all of this.
We want to go and find out more about what's being done for those who were injured in these attacks. Leslie Van Sant is with the American Red Cross. I believe she's joining us from Washington. Ms. Van Sant, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Matt.
Tell me what kind of resources you have available to you to pour into these areas where, obviously, in Lower Manhattan and in Washington, D.C. and outside Pittsburgh.
Well, our chapters on the area, our local disaster volunteers, they are, of course, the first people on the scene and responding. Unfortunately, probably now some of them are also victimized by the event. We're also mobilizing 80,000 units of blood to transfer to the regions as needed, and, taking guidance from emergency management personnel on what assistance we can provide to them to make this, response go smoothly.
Is there anything that, I know it's early after this has happened, but is there anything you can think of that people might be able to help you out with in terms of donating certain things? You mentioned blood and those things.
Well, we're asking people who are in other parts of the country who are blood donors or maybe not blood donors, maybe they could call and schedule an appointment so we can make sure that the supply stays ready. Our disaster volunteers, our mental health volunteers and health volunteers are going to be responding. This will, as Tom mentioned earlier, this is going to be a long, long response. The emotional trauma, the emotional impact is going to be felt weeks, months into the future, even years. So we're going to be working very hard at this for a long time.
All right, Leslie Van Sant with the American Red Cross. Ms. Van Sant, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Let's go now to Kathleen Zici of New York University Hospital, which is about 5 minutes away from the World Trade Center, where many of the victims have been brought. Kathleen, I know we spoke to you about an hour or so ago. Can you tell me what's going on in the hospital now? Kathleen? Okay, apparently we're having some problems with Kathleen, and I'm sure it's as chaotic there as it was at St. Vincent's, where we heard from Bob Bazell moments ago that there was a line with Cardinal Egan outside delivering last rites to some of the dead who were brought to the hospital. So we'll try to touch base with Kathleen in just a moment. But first we want to go to Andrea Mitchell once again in Washington. Andrea?
I've been told that the State Department evacuation, Katie, was precautionary only. There was no car bomb, as had at least been reported or rumored, not here on NBC. But in any case, that was precautionary only. There are still some officials there. They are now being redeployed to another location in Virginia. The CIA is still operational. Intelligence officials are still meeting at Langley, but those officials have also evacuated the non-essential employees. The current working theory, as you have been reporting and speculating, is that there is only one terror organization in this world that could coordinate this kind of event, and that would be something operated by Osama bin Laden. Intelligence officials say he is in Afghanistan, where he has been protected by the Taliban. And as we know, the United States has warned the Taliban government of Afghanistan that if there were any attack against the United States, that they would hold Afghanistan responsible. So that we most likely will expect retaliation, military retaliation. But I think right now the full focus of the U.S. government is on finding out how many other possible targets there might be, how many vulnerabilities there might be, making sure that there is no chemical or biological element out there. I spoke to a former Secretary of Defense, Bill Cohn, and others who had been part of the anti-terror operation planning, and they say that those are the first lines of defense to make sure that there is not some other event, unexpected as this obviously was, that could make Americans vulnerable. Obviously, this is the largest intelligence failure since Pearl Harbor. Katie?
All right, Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, thank you. We're going to check in again right now with Kathleen Zicci of New York University Hospital. Kathleen, tell me what the scene is like at your hospital.
Well, we're at NYU Downtown Hospital in Lower Manhattan, and we have had a steady stream of patients coming through the door since the first explosion occurred some hours ago. We have information at this point on 3+ fatalities, plus because there may be additional fatalities that I have not yet been informed of. We have had a severe burn case. One individual is an amputee, a serious neurosurgical injury, a whole range of injuries from both debris, smoke inhalation, respiratory issues related to smoke and debris from the collapse of the two buildings.
So how many medical personnel, Kathleen, do you have working there at NYU Hospital?
We have a medical staff of 500 plus physicians. The entire medical staff has been mobilized, as has the nursing staff, and they are working as hard as it's possible to work.
And tell me again, Kathleen, I know it's hard to estimate how many people you've seen so far?
It's in the hundreds. Our entire cafeteria has been transformed to a triage area, and it is wall-to-wall people at the present time.
All right, Kathleen, thank you very much for that update. I'm sure we'll be checking back with you a bit later on, and thank you very much.
Katie, let's go now to NBC's Bob Hager. And Bob, I think it's important that we recount. A short while ago, we were talking about 4 planes that were unaccounted for. It seems now we know what happened to all those 4 planes, isn't it?
That's it. There's no plane at the moment that we know of that's outstanding that's unaccounted for. And now NTSB is able to match the particular flights to the particular accidents or acts of terrorism. So the 2 planes that hit the World Trade Center were both takeoffs from Boston, one belonging to American Airlines, and it had been bound for Los Angeles. The other belonging to United Airlines, it too was bound for Los Angeles. Those are the 2 planes, the American airliner first and then the United plane, that went into the World Trade Center. The other 2 flights, the one that went into the Pentagon was an American Airlines flight bound from Washington's Dulles Airport to Los Angeles, and the plane that's down southeast of Pittsburgh is a United flight. It had been bound from Newark to San Francisco. I heard one report that it was Newark via Washington National to San Francisco, but I'm not sure of that. Let me tell you the flight numbers. The Boston takeoffs were American Airlines Flight 10. It had 92 aboard. That's one of the ones that hit the World Trade Center.
Bob, let me just interrupt you there for a second, because we've been reporting all morning that it was American Airlines Flight 11.
I'm mistaken. You're right. It's 11. American Flight 11. Thank you very much, with 92 aboard. And then the United Airlines that left from Boston and hit the other World Trade Center tower was United's 175. I don't have a figure on how many on board it. The flight that went into the Pentagon was American Airlines Flight 77, bound Washington Dulles to Los Angeles. There were 64 people aboard it, and the United Airlines flight that went down south of Pittsburgh was United's Flight 93, and there's no number on the number of passengers on it. But again, you have 4 flights known to have been hijacked, known to have crashed, and no flights at the moment that are outstanding that we know of.
Bob, that the crash that you just mentioned near Pittsburgh, I just want to say that is a United flight that was en route from Newark to San Francisco. Is that accurate?
That's what I have, and I've heard it 2 ways. It's Newark to San Francisco. I heard one report that there was an intermittent stop that it was to make at Washington's Reagan National, but that's not confirmed, so it might be erroneous.
Yeah, United is now confirming that, apparently, Robert. We also have a report from the mayor of Cleveland, Michael White, saying that a Boeing 767 out of Boston made an emergency landing at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport because of concerns it may have a bomb on board, but no confirmation of
We
that.
also have, just because I have a personal friend who was flying from Kennedy to Los Angeles this morning, that plane was diverted to Kansas City. So apparently many planes that were en route to certain locations have made special emergency landings in the wake of this, and because of concerns that there may be more problems aboard more airplanes.
And what happens, unfortunately, in situations like this, if the terrorists themselves don't call in to say that there's a bomb on board, you have the twisted minds of other people who call in and say, well, by the way, there's a bomb on board that flight. So it is chaos in the skies for those flights that were already in the air. Other flights have been grounded. This country has been immobilized in terms of where its attention now is focused on New York City and Washington, D.C., the tragedies in Pittsburgh as well. No air travel, no financial markets. All national monuments are being evacuated. The president has been rushed back to Washington, D.C. The Pentagon has been attacked by an airliner, in effect, and on Capitol Hill, code red. The Speaker of the House was taken to a very secure area because he's third in line, succession to the President of the United States. We are, as we have been saying this morning, in a state of war with terrorism.
And as a result, the Army has been placed at ThreatCon Delta. That means that armed personnel will be guarding U.S. installations, not only here in the United States, but in other parts of the world. You're looking at the southern tip of Manhattan Island here in New York City, and for so many years we've come accustomed to seeing the World Trade Center standing there in the background behind the Empire State Building that you see in the foreground. Those two towers no longer stand after a terrorist attack this morning. NBC's Pat Dawson is close to